good-paying union jobs, and that's something he believes and he's committed to doing. I think there's a lot of there is some misinformation out there about what this means, which is why it's not, I'm not saying from the media, I'm just saying in general. Again, there are oil and gas jobs that are out there. The existing leases will continue. He's really talking about future leases.
And then just one more on the gun issue. I know this is kind of a crazy question, but
it's always a good lead-in when it's a crazy question. It's quite a lead-in.
Given the history of people trying to enact gun control legislation in this country, is there some consideration to taking a look at the Second Amendment and just addressing it from a sort of the underlying constitutional right to bear arms? Is that something that the president feels needs to be called into question so many years after the revolution?
No one is talking about overturning or changing the Second Amendment. What our focus is on is putting in place common sense measures that will make our community safer, make families safer, make kids safer. The majority of the American public supports background checks. The majority of the American public does not believe that anyone needs to have an assault weapon. So that's really what our focus is on at this point in time.
Joe Manchin is not in support of this. Once again, you have a Democrat, a member of the president's own party, who is already signaling that he will not support that. You have a very slim majority. Can you convince Republicans to support this legislation so that you can work around a Democrat that's not supporting it?
As the president said yesterday, we don't know yet. He hasn't done the vote count, but it is certainly an issue he will talk to members about and convey why he feels it's so important, that it's not shouldn't be a political issue, that keeping our community safe, families safe, looking at the track record as what has worked in states, which is very informative, and actually to Josh's earlier question, something that we know more about now than we may have 10 years ago. So he will be conveying that to members he's communicating with. Go ahead.
Two questions. Following up on Reja's questions about representation, the Biden administration is the first in 20 years to not have an Asian American lead one of the 15 executive departments in the cabinet. So how does the White House square that fact with the president's pledges to make this the most representative, most diverse in history?
Well, I will just say the president remains committed to making sure this is the most diverse administration in history. That has always been, remains our goal. We've made a lot of progress. We have the most diverse cabinet in history, but we will continue to make progress. We have AAPI staff at senior levels and at all levels of the administration, and we will continue to work to find ways to elevate AAPI voices at the highest level of government. There are a number of cabinet level. I know it's not 15 members, but just to note, obviously Catherine Tai, who received overwhelming support in the Senate in her approval to be confirmed for USTR, Julie Su at the Department of Labor, Kiran Ahuja, I'm going to butcher that name and I apologize to Kiran, at OPM, Todd Kim, the Assistant Attorney General at DOJ. So we will continue, and obviously there are more positions and roles that we need to fill. And I will say first and foremost, the president's view is that we need to listen, and that is an important component of how we're communicating with members of Congress as concerns arise, also with leaders in the community, as he and the Vice President did last Friday, why it's so important as we look to policy making to have senior members of our administration do listening sessions in the community to determine how we can best address needs. There's personnel, of course, and we will continue to work toward that. There's policies, and that's part of our objective and our focus at this point in time.
And also a quick one on guns. The president also talked several times about a federal assault weapons ban, and I'm wondering how he plans to build a coalition around that, even when that policy is something that is opposed by many moderate Democrats in Congress.
Well, though it is supported by the majority of the American people, and that is an important fact. He will, it's something that he has long had a view and a belief that no one needs an assault weapon, that it is not something that should be a part of what people have access to in this country. And he will continue to, so you're asking kind of who will he talk to, or who will he
plan to build a coalition in Congress to build that support?
Well, part of it is certainly communicating with the advocates. It's communicating with outside groups, with gun owners, many of whom will tell you that they don't believe they would support an assault weapons ban, communicating with leaders in states where laws have been put in place that have been impactful, and obviously having conversations with members he's known for some time, having them at the staff level, and determining if we can find a path forward. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jen. I'd like to ask you two questions. The first about marijuana, and the second about a bit of a historical mystery I'm hoping you could help us solve.
Okay. There's a lot of setups for these questions today. I like it. Go ahead.
Sure. So Vice President Kamala Harris says that she is a past marijuana smoker. She said, quote, "It gives people joy, and we need more joy in this world." She is with a clear majority of the U.S. population in supporting marijuana legalization. According to polls, 2/3 of people do, including about half of Republicans. Yet last week, the Daily Beast reported that there were dozens of White House staffers who were either disciplined or terminated from their jobs for past marijuana use. You seem to confirm 5 terminations on Twitter. And my question is, why would President Biden allow this to happen, especially considering the White House staff were led to believe that pot use would not be disqualifying, especially considering the Vice President is herself a former marijuana user?
Well, let me first say that what we tried to do as an administration was work with the security service, who actually makes these determinations about suitability for serving in government. In the past, and I served in the Obama-Biden administration, the rules were actually far more stringent. So that isn't about anyone's personal point of view. It's about working through the process, the history, and modernizing it and taking steps to address the fact that marijuana is legal in a number of states across the country. It is still illegal federally, right? We know that. There were, as I noted, I think in our comment last week, 5 individuals who are no longer employed at the White House. A number of them, there were other security issues that were raised. And that's an unfortunate conclusion, of course. But what we tried to do is enable additional members of the team who would not have been able to continue serving in past administrations to continue serving by updating our policy in coordination with the security service.
Follow up on that. Surely President Biden could, implement changes here unilaterally and just say that these people can come to work for him.
Well, I think if marijuana was federally legal, that might be a different circumstance. But I don't think I have any more for this on you. On this for you. Go ahead.
Do you have any more data on the number of people impacted other than the 5 people who were terminated?
I don't have any more data for you other than to convey that there were a number of people who would not have been able to serve in past administrations, and because of our efforts to modernize and work with the security service, they're able to serve. Did you have another question?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
So this is as I set it up, a bit of a mystery, and I'm sure that you've inquired about this yourself. And,
okay. Where's the cat?
No, it's not that.
Okay.
So there was a report last year from the Senate Finance and Homeland Security Committees. It claimed that the wife of Moscow's former mayor paid a company associated with the president's son $3.5 million. There was no explanation for this alleged payments, and I'm wondering if you could tell us if that claim is accurate, and if so, what the $3.5 million was paid for.
Not familiar with that claim. Doesn't sound like it's backed up by a lot of evidence. If you have evidence or specifics, happy to discuss it further.
Committee's report. So you haven't asked about this, or?
I'm not familiar with the report at all. Go ahead.
With the May 1st deadline looming, when do you expect to hear from the President about the timing on withdrawal from Afghanistan?
It's a good question. As you may know, Secretary Blinken is currently in Brussels and talking with our NATO European partners. He did a press avail, I believe it was yesterday, but let me reiterate a couple of the points he made, and then I'll get to your question. That our focus right now is for him to share some of our thinking with our vital NATO partners, consult with them, hear from them on where they see things going, where they want things to go. That, as the President had said last week, it's tough meeting that May 1st timeline, and the Secretary of State reiterated that in his remarks as well. Whatever we do will be informed by our allies and partners, but the President is currently discussing, of course, with policy team members on what is possible, and hopefully he'll have an update soon, but I don't have a timeline on that for you.
An announcement this week?
I can't give you a timeline. It's really up to his own decision making and when he's prepared to talk about that publicly. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jen. I have a couple of foreign policy questions. I understand the administration has already supported COVAX.
is working with the Quad to ramp up production, working out details with Mexico and Canada. But where is the President's position on the request by more than 55 countries, as well as some Democratic lawmakers, on making vaccine patent through the WHO, giving a waiver to that?
Well, the top priority of the president's and of the United States is saving lives and ending the pandemic in the United States and, of course, around the world. That includes investing in COVAX, working with partners, as we announced with the Quad, to produce